All right, let's dive into this Lakers situation because even though it's just one game into the regular season, there's already a lot to unpack. And look, nobody's panicking, at least not yet. But there are problems that didn't just magically disappear in the offseason. In fact, the same flaws we saw in the preseason and even before that are still hanging around like a bad habit. And the biggest issue? Athleticism. The Lakers flat out lack it where it matters most. This team desperately needs more two-way players, guys who can defend and also hit the three, players who bring that 3-and-D profile that's become so essential in today's NBA. It's not just about having shooters or just defenders. You need wings that can do both, and the Lakers right now are way too thin in that department. If this team wants to compete seriously, at some point, they're going to have to make moves to bring in those kinds of players. You're not going to completely blow up the roster and start from scratch mid-season. That's just not realistic. But they need a couple of pieces, ideally guys who bring size, versatility, and energy on both ends of the floor. Now, some people are already throwing shade at DeAndre Ayton after that first game. But let's be real, he's not the problem. You're not going to find a better option than Ayton at that position, not with what the Lakers have to offer in trades. Instead of trying to replace him, the focus should be on building around him. What this roster lacks are those long, athletic wings that can guard multiple positions, get out in transition, and provide energy plays. Even adding just 2 or 3 guys who fit that mold could make a massive difference, not only in terms of team performance, but also in how the rest of the rotation functions. And here's the thing, a lot of these athletic guys are available. We're talking about young players who are getting waved left and right, guys who are 6'7", 6'8", with 7-foot wingspans and ridiculous verticals. Sure, they might not be polished defensive players. Some of them might be projects, but you don't need them to start. You need them to bring that spark off the bench, that injection of energy, length, and hustle that this team sorely lacks. Think about a guy like Edu Fierro. No one's saying he's the answer to everything, but he fits exactly what the Lakers need. He's long, explosive, and fearless attacking the rim. You're talking about a dude who's 6'8", with a 71-inch wingspan, a 41-inch vertical, and he plays with that defensive edge. That's a player profile the Lakers just don't have enough of. Sure, the jumper needs work, but if you're talking about a guy who can finish through contact and make plays in transition, that's gold for this team. The Lakers are missing that Jared Vanderbilt type, right? A guy who might not give you much offensively, but makes up for it with pure effort and lockdown defense. But even Vondo didn't quite look like himself in that first regular season game. In preseason, he showed flashes of the guy he was in 2023, active, energetic everywhere on defense. But in that opener, something seemed off. Maybe it's the knee. He had ice on it in one of those last preseason games, and ever since, he just hasn't looked as mobile. If he's dealing with something, it makes sense. You don't want to overexert a guy like that early in the season, especially when his whole value comes from his physicality, hustle, and defensive motor. That's the frustrating part. When Vondo's right, he's exactly the type of guy you want out there starting, especially in matchups like the one against Minnesota. He usually plays well against Anthony Edwards, and those two know each other, so there's always a little extra fire in that battle. You want him to take on that challenge. But he needs to be healthy to do that, and right now, we just don't know if he is. And then there's the question of balance. Because even if you have a Luka Doncic out there cooking, dropping 45 in a packed paint situation like he did against the Warriors, you can't just throw him out there with 4 non-shooters or 4 guys who can't create. That's not sustainable. You need some balance between scoring and athleticism. That's where the Lakers have to be smart with their roster construction. Luka is one of those guys who doesn't really care what the defense throws at him. You pack the paint, he'll still get to his spots. He's crafty, strong, and can shoot over almost anyone. But you still need a lineup around him that complements his game. Guys who can defend at a high level, rebound, run the floor, and don't clog up spacing too badly. And let's not forget, LeBron is still in the picture. Once he's back, that duo of LeBron and Luka is going to be a nightmare to guard, assuming you surround them with the right role players. The offensive load those two can carry is enormous, but they need help defensively and on the glass. That's where guys like Vanderbilt, Fierro, and maybe even a sneaky pickup of a young, athletic free agent come into play. Now, in terms of trades, it's not going to be easy. The Lakers only have one first-round pick and a couple of swaps to work with. They've got some expiring deals, Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, guys like that, but you're not going to trade 5 players for 5 better ones. That's not realistic. What you could do is pull off a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 type deal. Get one higher-end wing like Andrew Wiggins or Herb Jones, and then fill the gaps with minimum signings or G League call-ups who can run the floor and defend. You can't count on Gabe Vincent to solve your defensive problems. He just doesn't have the size or length. Austin Reeves is a nice player, crafty and smart, but he's not giving you the athleticism you need at the wing. Rui Hachimura? Solid offensively, but not a plus defender. Even Marcus Smart, who brings toughness and leadership, isn't quite the athlete he once was. And Ayton, for all his talent and athletic tools, is a center. He can't guard every perimeter threat, even if he did a decent job switching on a Steph Curry and helping to force a turnover. You don't want your big man playing perimeter defense every possession. So what are the Lakers really missing? Wings who are long, fast, and can lock in on defense. That's the biggest hole on this roster. And it's why this team is so inconsistent on that end of the floor. When you don't have guys who can get out and contest shots, close out on shooters, or even chase down long rebounds, you're constantly playing catch-up. And it's not something Luka, LeBron, or even Ayton can fix alone. The blueprint here isn't complicated. You have your offensive engines, Luka, and eventually LeBron. You got a solid interior presence in Ayton. Now you need the connectors. The guys who do the dirty work, run the floor, and defend at a high level. Think of the role Bruce Brown played for the Nuggets during their title run, or how Josh Hart changes games without scoring. The Lakers need those types of players. And again, they don't all have to be stars. In fact, they probably won't be. But if you can go out and find 1 or 2 high-motor, athletic wings, even if they're just energy guys off the bench, it can make a massive difference. You bring in a Herb Jones or a Miles Bridges and pair them with a raw, explosive guy from free agency or the G League, and suddenly your team looks completely different. There's no need to overthink this. Get athletes. Get defenders. Get guys who are hungry and want to prove something. The offense is going to come, especially with Luka and LeBron on the floor together. But if you don't fix the lack of athleticism, this team is going to get exposed again and again by quicker, longer, more explosive lineups, especially in the West where the margin for error is razor thin. And continuing from that, there's another layer to this that often gets overlooked. The Lakers don't just need athletes, they need intelligent athletes. It's not just about running and jumping. It's about guys who know where to be, when to rotate, when to switch, and how to play within a system. Because if you just throw a bunch of raw players onto the court who don't know how to stay disciplined defensively, you're just trading one problem for another. That's why when we talk about balance, it's not just offensive and defensive balance, but also a balance between raw talent and basketball IQ. Luka is someone who thrives when he plays with guys who understand spacing and timing. He needs cutters who know when to dive, shooters who know when to relocate, and defenders who know when to help and when to stay home. And let's be real, if the Lakers are planning on making any sort of deep playoff run, that level of intelligence on both ends is going to be mandatory. They can't afford to be late on rotations or to miss easy reads on offense. Every possession will matter. This brings us back to the current rotation. A guy like Marcus Smart, he's got that defensive IQ. He might not be the elite athlete he once was, but his timing, communication, and ability to read plays before they happen make him a valuable asset on the court. That's why if you're going to run with Luka and Austin Reeves in your backcourt, someone like Smart becomes even more essential. He can take on the tougher defensive assignment, organize the defense, and still hit the occasional open three. Then there's Jared Vanderbilt. If he's healthy, and that's still a big if, he could be the ultimate glue guy. He does all the things that don't show up in the box score. He fights for loose balls, he switches on defense, he helps on the boards, and he brings a toughness that the Lakers have lacked at times. But the problem is, you need more than just one Vanderbilt. You need multiple players with that kind of motor, that kind of defensive versatility. And with his health in question, you absolutely cannot rely on him being your only source of that energy. So again, the ideal path forward is to make at least one quality trade. Bring in a guy like Wiggins, Herb Jones, or someone that mold, and then supplement the rest with young, hungry players who might not be polished but can give you size, length, and athleticism off the bench. These are the types of players who don't need the ball in their hands to make an impact. They're just out there flying around, defending, rebounding, cutting, setting screens. They help the stars shine by doing the gritty work. And that's where someone like Adu Fierro could be an interesting experiment. Is he ready for real minutes? Maybe not yet. But can he grow into a role over the course of the season? Absolutely. What he brings, length, lateral quickness, and vertical pop, is something the Lakers can't manufacture from anyone else on their bench. So why not give him some minutes here and there? Let him get experience guarding NBA wings and learning how to play off of Luka and Ayton. He doesn't need to be a star. He just needs to be serviceable. If he could be a plus defender who finishes plays in transition and crashes the boards, that's already a win. There's also the question of how the Lakers manage their lineups. One of the criticisms last year, and even into the early preseason this year, has been the lack of cohesion in the lineups. Sometimes you'd see a unit out there with no real spacing. Other times, it was a lineup full of offensive talent, but nobody to defend. The goal now should be to find that perfect mix, a group that can defend, push the pace, and still knock down shots when needed. Let's say you start Luka, Austin Reeves, Marcus Smart, Jared Vanderbilt, and DeAndre Ayton. That lineup gives you scoring, playmaking, perimeter defense, rim protection, and energy. Off the bench, you then bring in Rue for offense, Fierro, or another long athlete for defense, Gabe Vincent as your backup point guard, and maybe a guy like Jake LaRavia who can play multiple positions and showed promise guarding elite scorers like Jimmy Butler. That second unit might not have the firepower of your starters, but it brings energy and versatility. And in today's NBA, that's often more important than simply having 5 scorers on the court. But even if you don't run with that exact starting 5, the key is making sure you always have a blend. You can't afford to go 5 deep with slow-footed players or guys who don't contribute defensively. That's when teams like the Kings or the Thunder will run you off the court. It's not about having the most talent. It's about having the right mix of pieces that fit together, that know how to complement each other's strengths and cover for each other's weaknesses. And if you're J.J. Redick, you have to be bold enough to make those calls. Bench someone if you have to. Shake up the rotation. Don't just rely on what worked last season, because this is a new team with different dynamics. Austin Reeves might be a fan favorite, but if he's getting hunted on defense and not giving you enough offensively to justify it, maybe he needs to come off the bench. Same goes for Rue. He's a gifted scorer, but his defensive lapses can't be ignored. You have to reward effort and execution, not just name recognition. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on, whispers around the NBA corridors have been heating up again, and all eyes seem to be on Milwaukee. Sources close to the league suggest that Giannis Antetokounmpo, the reigning superstar of the Milwaukee Bucks, could be at the center of one of the most shocking off-season moves in recent memory. While the Bucks have long relied on the Greek Freak as the cornerstone of their championship ambitions, insiders hint that tensions behind the scenes might be pushing Giannis to explore opportunities elsewhere. Though the two-time MVP has remained outwardly committed to Milwaukee, murmurs from anonymous sources suggest that his relationship with team management has grown complicated. Some say disagreements over the team's long-term direction, player acquisitions, and contract flexibility may have seeded a subtle but growing frustration. A league executive, speaking on condition of anonymity, hinted that while Giannis loves Milwaukee, the pull of building a legacy on a new stage could be tempting. Across social media and fan forums, speculation is rampant. Could the Greek superstar be setting his sights on a bigger market, one where championship windows are wider and the spotlight even brighter? Rumors point toward several franchises that could afford Giannis' astronomical contract while surrounding him with complementary talent. The conversation isn't just about money. Sources indicate that Giannis may be craving a fresh challenge, a chance to prove he can carry a team to multiple titles without the shadow of a well-established core around him. Meanwhile, the Bucks organization is reportedly in listening mode, with top executives keeping contingency plans ready. If Giannis were to depart, the ripple effect would reshape the entire NBA landscape, triggering trades, signings, and a scramble among contenders to fill the void left by one of basketball's most dominant forces. Fans are torn between disbelief and excitement, as the idea of Giannis wearing a different jersey next season feels both surreal and tantalizing. For now, nothing is official, and the Bucks remain tight-lipped. But the chatter isn't dying down. Every practice, every game, and every interview is now being dissected for signs. One thing is certain. If the rumors are true, the next chapter of Giannis Antetokounmpo's career could be one of the most talked-about stories in NBA history. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.